the delegates, very good evening, and being the opening batsman of only 2022, I welcome all of you once again. Very happy to be back at it after a gap of 2 years. My topic of discussion today is off-label cochlear implantation, specifically going beyond severe to profound hearing loss. So when we talk about cochlear implantation, what are the few general ideas that quickly pop up in our heads, in everyone's head? So the first thing is it's a surgical treatment. We all know that. Some people call it a prosthetic here. It's an invasive treatment when we compare it to traditional hearing aid fitting or even maybe drug therapy wherever it is applicable. In a country like India, the cost of cochlear implantation is a huge factor. It cannot be debated that it is a very costly procedure. The government programs have thankfully bridged the gap immensely, but for a large section of the population, it is still quite inaccessible because of the cost factor. It is effective. There's a lot of data, a lot of research on it, undoubtedly, but the effectiveness of cochlear implants are bound by a myriad of factors, hence the question mark over there. And the general idea is that cochlear implants are meant for individuals with severe to profound hearing loss, where all other treatment methods have kind of failed. Okay, so again, there's a lot that can be discussed on each of these topics, but in my short talk today, I will be mainly focusing on probably the last point. So if we think about who is a cochlear implant candidate, there is no single one word or one sentence answer to this. There are a lot of things that needs to be considered. But if we talk about 4 primary deciding factors, the first thing, of course, it's the hearing profile of the individual, and it's not just the type or severity of the hearing loss, but the configuration, especially when it comes to the audiogram. The configuration is very important. Traditionally, the cochlear implantation is preceded by a trial period with hearing aids, with amplification devices, and this period is extremely crucial. The key word over here is appropriately fit hearing aids, because based on this response, how the person is performing with the hearing aids, we can either direct them or guide them to take up the sort of a risk to go through an invasive process or spend that much amount on a surgical procedure with confidence that yes, you are going to be benefiting from it, or in cases where they don't, we can save them from going through an invasive process or spending that much amount of money. So this process is extremely crucial, this factor. And again, there are certain things which are not exactly in our control. The anatomy, physiology, not just of the hearing system, but the central mechanisms involved with audition, listening, speech. And again, associated conditions, not exactly a candidacy factor, but maybe a prognostic factor. Again, in my scope of the talk today, I will mainly be focusing on the first 2 points, the hearing profile and the performance with hearing aids. So, to guide me through this session, I have taken up a case report, our experience with these 2 sisters, Maria and Tabassum, both of them who came to us with congenital hearing loss, and what we experienced through them. Okay, so before we start, let's just let's listen to a conversation that our surgeon, Dr. Biswajit Gogoi, had with the parents, with this children's family recently.
Come Maria. Hello. Are you school line again? School banda. The kun class. কোনটো ক্লাস?
Two.
ক্লাস 2, ওকে 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 ওকে। আর তপস্যম কি খবর?
Mana ni sudah menghuna tak?
হ্যাঁ
Mana itu nak menghuna tak? Tak tu menghuna.
তপস্যম নুহুনে কিয়?
Tak kamu sudah menghuna. Mana sudah berapa apa?
মারিয়া স্পষ্ট শুনা পায়, তপস্যম শুনা নাপায়
Tak tu iman ada menghuna tak?
কিয়? মেচিন নলয় নেকি?
Mesti tu orang kata kau dulu.
মেচিন লগাই থাকে কিন্তু তথাপিও নুশুনে।
Mesti kita kan.
তাই কি নুশুনে মানে কি কথাটো কেনেকুৱা স্পষ্ট হৈছে নে নাই?
Tapi ikut kawan Maria ni sudah. Tentu kalau Maria kalau tu apa kita kata ini boleh dibuat sudah sama sekolah kita. Jadi kita diam tu mesti orang kali.
ধ্যান রাখবে।
Kita nak kena apa tu bisa ni dia kena apa apa apa. Kita kena apa Maria tu nak apa normal હોય છે tak apa tu kena apa ini problem. Maria problem নাই sir.
মাৰিয়া প্ৰব্লেম নাই ন? মেচিনৰ ইমপ্লেণ্টৰ কিবা ইছ্যু আছে নেকি? ইমপ্লেণ্টৰ একো প্ৰব্লেম হোৱা নাই?
Problem হোৱা নাই এটা মেচিন লগাই আছো ইঞ্জিনটো ভালে আছে বৰ্তমান লৈকে
ভালে আছে ট্ৰান্সফাৰবিলাক চব এইবিলাক ঠিকে আছে ন?
হয় sir
ওকে 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 এই হেৰি কি কয় তই এতিয়া গান চান গাব পাৰে নহয়?
পাৰে গান গাব পাৰে আমি ইমান নিশিকো তথাপিও একেবাৰে নৰ্মেল হৈ গৈছে পাৰে এনে অকলে গুলি গুলি শিকে আমি শিকাব নালাগে তাই গুলি গুলি শিকে
বুজিছো
Okay, just for the benefit of the audience who might have missed a little bit, the audio may not have been perfect, and for the benefit of Madhuri ma'am, you might have missed the conversation. Okay, so I would just try to highlight a few points which really caught our attention here. First thing that the parents were saying, very obviously, Tabassum, the younger sister, is not hearing as well as Maria. Tabassum needs repetitions in order to understand what is being said to her. Her speech is not yet clear. She is wearing her hearing aids. It's not that she's not using her hearing aids, and her parents, they use verbal communication. So they are she is getting the amount of exposure that she needs to get. And the most crucial part at the end of the conversation was that Maria is now learning things without them being taught to her. So she is learning them on her own spontaneously. So that is usually the benchmark that we expect or look for out of fitting, or the outcome that we look for whenever we go for any treatment for a child with hearing loss. So now going a little bit in detail into the case, Maria is the elder sister in this case. She was brought to us when she was around 3 years of age back in 2016. So she came to us with the idea of, with the purpose of undergoing cochlear implantation. Her hearing test reports, her ABR showed severe to profound hearing loss in the right ear and moderately severe hearing loss in the left ear. And when we look at her audiogram, we can see that, especially in the left ear, up to around 1 kilohertz, there's a significant amount of residual hearing. And this is back in 2016 when the EDIT program had just taken off and we had also just started. So based on these test reports, when we actually applied for her cochlear implantation under the EDIT scheme, it was actually rejected, saying that she has quite a lot of residual hearing in the left ear, so she's not a candidate. But fortunately or unfortunately for her, her parents had already gotten hearing aids. They were analog, not very good quality hearing aids, not very appropriate for her. So her aided responses were quite poor. It's almost as good as unaided. And on the basis of this aided audiogram, we were able to convince the committee to, let her undergo cochlear implantation. And after implantation, 1 year post-implantation, this is a clip.
বুদিন জঙ্গলে একটা শিয়াল আছিল
একদিন ধরে একটা টিয়ার আছে তাতে টিয়ারে টিকে মারতে তারপর
Just
ততি আনলিম দেখতে তারপর
So as we can see, Maria at this point of time, 1 year post CI, I mean, her speech of course was, the articulation was not completely clear, but she was already narrating stories. In 1 year post CI, that is quite rare. We don't really see those kind of responses very easily. But I think that her having residual hearing and good amount of hearing really played a role in this case. Tabassum, on the other hand, when Maria, the process for her LF application was going on, parents detected or suspected hearing loss in the younger sister also. And when we did an ABR, we found that in her right ear there was response up to 80 dB. So she had around moderately severe hearing loss in the right ear and severe to profound loss in the left ear. So similar to Maria, but the ears were reversed. She was 1 year of age, so we could not get very reliable audiograms for her, but we had to fit her with based on her ABR itself with superpower digital behind the ear hearing aids. And with the hearing aids, we could obtain this aided responses actually much later. They did not stick with us after the fitting for a very long time. But if we look at, these are the aided responses that we obtained for Tabassum with her hearing aids. Before going into this audiogram specifically, I would quickly like to take some time to focus on this yellow banana shaped portion that we see in the audiogram. I'm not very sure how frequently ENT surgeons over here has come across this kind of an audiogram. I hope quite frequently. This yellow portion basically it represents the speech spectrum or the region in the audiogram where most of the speech sounds in different languages lie during normal conversational voice. Okay, so the various vowels, consonants, different phonemes of the speech, where they lie when a person is speaking in a normal conversational voice. So this is the range, and the earlier idea was that with a hearing aid or a cochlear implant, as long as the aided responses are lying within the speech spectrum, it was thought that a person is getting adequate benefit. But over the years with research, we have figured out that this speech spectrum itself is a huge range. So just having the response somewhere within the aided, somewhere within the speech spectrum is not quite enough. If the aided responses are in the lower part of the spectrum, that means the person is only hearing about 10% of the phonemes in a normal conversational voice. So what we need to target at this point of time is the top of the speech spectrum, which is also known as the speech string beam. The concept of speech string beam was put forward by Professor Jane Medell, who is a pediatric audiologist, and what she found out was that only when the responses are along the speech string beam, a child is able to overhear conversation, and that is how 50% of, more than 50% of the language is learned. So that is the target, that is the portion that we need to target. Coming back to Tabassum's aided responses, the younger sister's aided responses, as we can see, especially in the right ear, her up to around 2 kilohertz, her responses are along the speech string, the upper portion of the speech spectrum. And because of this reason, the parents or even us as audiologists and speech therapists, we were quite happy with the responses that we were getting in the initial stages. Even if we look at this is a video of Maria with her sister. Maria was...
Yes, Papa. Eating to that. No, Papa.
Maria, kuno ya?
মারে দেখে না হাত ছাড়ো তুমি হাত ধরো তুমি দিকে
মুখে থেকে আসো তাবসুম কথা কও
আসলে কথা বল কথা বলছেন তোমার নাম কি কথা বলছেন তোমার নাম বলছো
So this is Tabassum with 6 months of hearing aid use, and Maria has been using her implant since about 1 year of age, for about 1 year. So here, as we can see, Tabassum is, she has the normal jargon speech sort of development that we see in typically developing children when they are just about to start speaking picking up real words and sentences around 1.5 years of, about 1.5 to 2 years of age. So 1 year after implantation, what we in the developmental stages also, what we expect is usually a child is spoken to in one-to-one conversations. Mostly it is happening in home situation or in the therapy situation where it's a silent environment. They are expected to understand or respond to mostly either single words or short phrases. So and there's a lot of inflection, a lot of voice modulation which is involved, and that is low frequency dominant cues. So in the initial stages, what we saw with Tabassum also was the responses were pretty good. And that is when the parents were also satisfied, and unfortunately these people are out of station, so they had to go back to their hometown and they did not follow up. And from there, we come back to the conversation that happened almost 5 years later now. If we see, we have to see not just what she was able to hear, but what she was missing. So Tabassum was hearing a lot of the speech phonemes, but in a normal conversational voice, she was still missing out on a lot of consonants. Especially, even this is in the better hearing ear. When we look at the left ear, where her aided responses were poorer, she was missing out on almost more than 50% of the speech sounds, especially. So when it comes to the real life situations, when she was in noisy situations, when she had to listen to people in the distance, she was missing out on a lot, and that is why the development kind of slowed down to a great extent. Now, if we try to understand how a person hears,
This is a pediatric cochlear implant chemically changing and evolving process due to new research and technological advancements. Some candidacy recommendations have gained approval from country-specific entities. For example,
so this is a short audio clip that you will ask, all of us can hear as a normal hearing person. For example, this is what we hear. So if we look at an audiogram like this, which is Tabassum's audiogram in the better hearing ear. So let's see what she is able to hear.
pediatric cochlear implant rapidly changing and evolving process with new research and technological advancements. Some candidacy recommendations have gained approval from company-specific entities. For example, Australian
Almost unintelligible. There's only a few hums in between that we are able to catch, especially when the noise is overlapping, it becomes very difficult. And now let's see what she is able to hear in her aided condition.